Before we get into it, I want to send a thanks to Crutchfield for sponsoring today's video. More on that later. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Dune 2 in both Dolby Cinema and in IMAX. So I just got back from watching Dune 2, both IMAX, Dolby Cinema. First off, being in IMAX over at my local IMAX cinema, which is in Milford, Connecticut. They have an IMAX. It's not a true IMAX in the sense that it's not 70mm compatible, so it's not 8 stories high, just as you would find it in an IMAX such as the Lincoln Square IMAX in New York City. But it's called Limax, I guess you can say, where it's kind of not quite as tall, but it's still bigger than most cinemas, right? So at the Milford IMAX cinema, they do have a 4K projector, and the audio is done in 12-channel audio. I also saw the Dolby Cinema version in the Plainville cinema, which obviously, if you guys know what Dolby Cinema is, they have Dolby Vision for their projection system, and they also have Dolby Atmos surround sound. So we've got 12 channels with the IMAX version, and then Dolby Atmos, which is capable up to something like 128 channels in their own cinemas. Now let's go over a few tech specs really quick. This movie was not shot on IMAX film cameras. It was shot digitally in 6.5K and I believe 4.5K. It's PG-13 and it's a pretty long movie, coming in at 2 hours and 46 minutes, whereas the previous Dune movie was 2 hours and 35 minutes. So first off, since the cinema that I saw it in, the IMAX cinema that I saw it in, does have IMAX laser, we are getting 4K resolution, and it's pretty amazing. It did look stunning in 4K cinema. Some quick takeaways: it is super crisp, super sharp. If you are someone that has a home theater at home, something like maybe a higher end Epson, Sony, or JVC, if you really like that really crisp, detailed image, although there is a little bit of grain to it. I'm gonna assume that they probably shot it digitally, transferred it to film, rescanned it back to digital, just so they can take that edginess off of the digital imagery. So it isn't like razor sharp. There is a very, very faint layer of grain in this presentation that I saw in IMAX. It's still super crisp, super sharp. I think the main takeaway between these two presentations, IMAX and Dolby Cinema, is obviously going to be the aspect ratio. So if you go into IMAX, you want to get the largest screen possible. There are 3 aspect ratios that I'm aware of. There's the Dolby Cinema or standard cinema aspect ratio, which is going to be 2.39, which is CinemaScope, so it's more of a rectangular aspect ratio. The version that I saw it in is in IMAX Laser, which is in 1.90, which is almost the same aspect ratio as your television set. So it's still rectangular, but if you're going to watch it on your TV set, it would almost fill the TV set. You're probably going to have really tiny black bars on the top and the bottom of your set. And then there's the 70mm version. So if you're going to watch it in a cinema such as the AMC in New York City, which is capable of 70mm film, you would get the full aspect ratio, which is 1.43. So it's going to be in a square shape rather than rectangular. And if you want to get the most image information, it's going to be in the 1.43. So the version that I saw it in is going to be in the IMAX Laser, which is in 1.90, which is going to be more akin to your television set. Now you're going to ask, Shane, why didn't you go to New York City and watch it in the AMC Lincoln Square? Well, let's face it, as popular as IMAX has been becoming in the past few years, a lot of these IMAX cinemas are super uncomfortable. They're very uncomfortable. The last time I've been to the AMC in Lincoln Square, that seat was broken, so it's kind of like you're sitting there, but it was a little broken. The spring was broken, so I was like cocked a little bit. It's very uncomfortable. There's so many seats packed in a single row, so you're kind of sitting there like you're traveling economy on an airline. You're like really close elbow to elbow. There's not much room in these IMAX cinemas. So I did not travel to the AMC IMAX cinema to watch this movie in 70mm. I opted to go for the IMAX Laser. And again, the IMAX Laser is still 4K. I still saw the presentation in 12-channel surround sound. And frankly, I was kind of blown away. by the presentation here over at the Milford Cinema in Connecticut. It's crisp, it's clean, the colors were rich, the colors were vibrant. The only knock that I'm going to give it, I mean, depending on what theater you're going to, there are exit signs to the left and to the right side. At this particular venue, they did not turn off the exit signs. So there is a little bit of a glow that came from the left and right sides, which can wash out the image. So black levels were not as clean and pristine as I was expecting it to. That being said, again, the detail was off the charts. And if we're talking about HDR quality, comparing it to the Dolby Cinema version, they kind of looked almost identical. I was thinking that possibly the Dolby Vision version and the Dolby Cinema would keep the highlights and shadow detail more intact, but that really wasn't the case because I did go watch them back to back and I really didn't see too much of a difference except for the expanded aspect ratio. Going back to the seats really quick, as for the Dolby Cinema seats, they do recline, they are fully leather, they're way more comfortable than the IMAX seats. If we're gonna go for comfort alone, Dolby Cinema wins. Now going over to the Dolby Cinema, which I went to in Plainville, Connecticut, their screen obviously is not going to be as big as the IMAX Cinema. So if you do opt to go for the Dolby Cinema, it is going to be in the 2.39 aspect ratio. Meaning if you're comparing it to the IMAX version, you're going to be losing information on the top and bottom of the screen. Now what Dolby likes to promote in their literature, or if you're watching some of their previews before the movie starts, they like to say that their highlight, their Dolby Vision HDR is like superior to anything else out there. Like the highlights are not clipped, the shadow detail is super crisp, super dark, it's very black. But really in comparison, when I went back and forth with the IMAX version and the Dolby Vision version, I didn't see too much of a difference. Detail-wise, I thought they were on par with each other. The only negative that I would give to the IMAX version was that I think the screen was really old, so I could see kind of like the perforations and the striations in the screen material on the IMAX version. I think if you have like if you are at a newer IMAX cinema with a freshly installed screen, you probably wouldn't see that. I mean, so that's the only knock that I would give the IMAX version against the Dolby Cinema version. Now, IMAX's claim to fame is going to be their aspect ratio. If we're going to compare it to the Dolby Cinema version, we're supposed to get extra height information, so more information on the top and more information on the bottom, while still retaining the same information horizontally. Comparing the two, which I did take some screenshots of this at the cinema, yes, there is a little bit more information on the top and bottom on the IMAX version, but on the Dolby Cinema version, there's also a little bit more information on the left and right sides. In this particular shot, there's a little bit more info on the bottom of the screen for the IMAX scene, but also on this shot for the Dolby Cinema version, you can see more information on the left and right sides. So there's a little bit more info right behind Zendaya's head on the Dolby Cinema version, but also if you go back to the IMAX version, there's more information on the bottom of the screen. So which way do you want to go? Do you want more information horizontally, or do you want more information vertically? And I thought that IMAX would have much more horizontal information while keeping the same vertical information, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So it's either one or the other. You want more height information or you want more vertical information. Detail-wise, it's kind of a wash. I mean, both of them look super crisp, super detailed. I didn't see any main difference. I mean, I did go to see the IMAX in 2K at the Plainville IMAX because the Milford Cinema does have a 4K projector. The Plainville IMAX has a 2K projector. And I did notice a little bit of crispiness, a little bit of the film grain was missing from the 2K version, whereas it was a lot more noticeable on the 4K IMAX version. But the same kind of film grain is still present with Dolby Cinema. I want to take a minute to thank Crutchfield for sponsoring today's video. They are celebrating their 50-year anniversary, and it's that kind of longevity that should tell you that they have great customer service and that the folks there actually do care about you. I remember buying one of my first home theater amps from them back in 1996, the Adcom GFA 5503. And just a few months ago, I also bought some JL speakers for my truck, the C2650s. With a little help from the folks there, they were able to get me all of the correct adapters and even tell me how to do the installation myself so I wouldn't have to pay someone to do it for me. And that saved me a lot of money on the install. So if you're looking for a new system for your automobile or a new home theater setup, Crutchfield has got you covered. They've got free lifetime support and a very generous 60-day return policy. So if it isn't working out for you, you've got plenty of time to return it. You can find links down below in this video's description if you want to browse their entire selection. Now, audibly, Dolby Atmos cinemas usually have better audio, right? Because they're capable of up to like 128 channels, whereas the IMAX version capable of up to 12 channels, which is the version that I saw it in or listened to it in. As for like high channel activity, as far as like surround sound effects coming from above your head, which is what Dolby Atmos was known for, I didn't hear too much of that. At least not in this specific theater in Plainville, Connecticut. I didn't hear too much overhead activity. I mean, there's a few scenes. There's that scene where Dave Bautista is about to go take off in the ornithopters or the choppers, whatever they're called. They're in that big field, their big military base. They're all kind of like taking off. In the IMAX version, you can clearly hear them going from like left to right, front to back, so on and so forth. And I got the same experience with the Dolby Atmos version, but I was kind of expecting some stuff to go on overhead in the Dolby Atmos version, but everything kind of was relegated to the lower channels, which sounded very similar to the IMAX version. And that kind of happened throughout the entire duration of the movie, which is 2 hours and 45 minutes long, by the way. The main takeaway here between the IMAX and the Dolby Cinema version is that the IMAX version has so much more bass than the Atmos version. Again, this could be just this specific theater in this specific Dolby Cinema, but I saw it in 2 different IMAX cinemas, and both times the IMAX version has so much bass that it feels like it cuts through your body, like it vibrates your chest. There's so much bass in it. Whereas the Dolby Cinema version in Dolby Atmos, it almost felt like they forgot to turn their subwoofers on. So it was very anemic sounding in its bass response. Detail-wise in the audio mix, I will say that the Atmos version is a little bit sharper sounding. So as far as like little effects like wind and stuff like that, I'm gonna give the win to the Atmos version. Like again, the main difference here is gonna be the bass. The bass is so much more tremendous from what I heard in 2 IMAX venues over the Dolby Cinema version. Dune 2, IMAX or Dolby Cinema. These are the 2 premier formats that you can see this movie in. For me, I'm gonna have to go say IMAX. Go to IMAX. Again, if you can go to a 70mm IMAX, it will have the bigger aspect ratio of 1.43. If not, go to a laser IMAX, which is gonna be a 1.90. Those are going to be your 2 best options. Those are going to give you the most visual splendor, the most spectacular image, most immersive image possible. It's going to just almost cover your field of view. If you can't do that, obviously go to the Dolby Cinema version, but the IMAX wins for visuals. The IMAX wins for audibles as well, at least for the 3 cinemas that I went to. And one negative thing is that the Dune buckets were sold out, so I wasn't able to get one on hand to give you a review on that. I wish I could have got a Dune bucket, but did you guys also get a Dune bucket as well? Which one did you prefer, IMAX or Dolby Cinema? Leave your thoughts down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you again in the next video.